Book 6. The substance of the universe is obedient and compliant, and the reason which governs it has in itself no cause for doing evil, for it has no malice, nor does it do evil to anything, nor is anything harmed by it, but all things are made and perfected according to this reason. So long as you are doing your duty, let it make no difference to you whether you are cold or warm, nor whether you are drowsy or satisfied with sleep, nor whether ill spoken of or praised, nor whether dying or doing something else. For this act by which we die is still one of the acts of life. It is sufficient then in this act also if we can do well what we have before us. Look within. Do not let the particular quality or value of anything escape you. All existing things soon change, and they will either be reduced to vapour, if indeed all material experience is one, or they will be dispersed into atoms. The governing reason knows what its own disposition is, and what it does, and on what material it works. The best way of avenging yourself is not to become like the wrongdoer. Find your pleasure and rest in one thing, to pass from one social act to another social act, thinking of God. The ruling principle of the mind is that which rouses and turns itself, and while it makes itself such as it is and such as it wills to be, it also makes everything that happens appear to itself to be such as it wills. Every single thing is accomplished in conformity to the nature of the universe, for certainly it is not in conformity to any other nature that each thing is accomplished, either a nature which externally comprehends this, or a nature which is comprehended within this nature, or a nature external and independent of this. The universe is either a confusion and a complex network of things, and a dispersion into atoms, or it is unity and order and providence. If then it is the former, why do I desire to tarry in a fortuitous combination of things and such a disorder? And why do I care about anything other than how I shall at last become earth? And why am I disturbed? For the dispersion of my elements will happen whatever I do. But if the other supposition is true, I venerate and I am firm, and I trust in him who governs. When circumstances drive you into some kind of disturbed state, quickly return to yourself, and do not continue out of tune longer than the compulsion lasts, for you will have more mastery over the harmony by continually recurring to it. If you had a stepmother and a mother at the same time, you would be dutiful to your stepmother, but still you would constantly return to your mother. Let the court and philosophy now be to you stepmother and mother. Return to philosophy frequently and take your rest in her. Thereby what you are faced with in the court will appear to you tolerable, and you will appear tolerable in the court. When we have meat before us and other eatables, it is a good idea to take in, as a felt impression, the knowledge that this is the dead body of a fish, and this is the dead body of a bird or of a pig, and again that this Falernian wine is only a little grape juice, and this purple robe some sheep's wool dyed with the blood of a shellfish. And in the carnal act, that it is no more than the rubbing of a membrane and an emission of mucus. Such felt knowledge reaches well to the core of a thing, and to penetrate through it, to see what kind of thing it is. Just in the same way ought we to act all through life, and where there are things which appear most worthy of our approbation, we ought to lay them bare and look at their worthlessness and strip them of all the words by which they are exalted. For outward show is a wonderful perverter of the reason, and when you are most sure that you are employed about things worth doing, it is then that it cheats you most. Consider, for example, what Crates said of Xenocrates himself. Most of the things which the multitude admire may be classed as objects of the most general kind, held together by cohesion, such as stones or wood, or natural organization like fig trees, vines, olives. Those that are admired by men who are a little more reasonable come under the heading of things which are held together by a living principle, as flocks or herds. Those which are admired by men who are still more instructed are the things which are held together by a rational soul. Not, however, a universal soul, but rational so far as it is a soul skilled in some art, or expert in some other way, but one who values the rational nature of the soul, a soul universal and fitted for political life, regards nothing else except this, and above all things he keeps his soul in a condition and in an activity conformable to reason and social life, and he cooperates to this end with those who are of the same kind as himself. Some things are hurrying into existence, and others are hurrying out of it, and of that which is coming into existence, part is already extinguished. Motions and changes are continually renewing the world, just as the uninterrupted course of time is always renewing the infinite duration of ages. In this flowing stream, then, on which there is no abiding, what is there of the things which hurry by, on which a man would set a high price? It would be just as if a man should fall in love with one of the sparrows which fly by, but it has already passed out of sight. Something of this kind is the very life of every man, like the exhalation of vapour from the blood, and the respiration of the air. For such as it is to have once drawn in the air and to have given it back, which we do every moment, just the same is it with the whole power of breathing, which you received at your birth but yesterday or the day before, and which you must give back to the element from which you first drew it. Neither transpiration, as in plants, nor respiration, as in domesticated animals and wild beasts, is a thing to be valued, nor is the receiving of sense impressions, nor being pulled about by desires as puppets by strings, nor assembling in herds, nor being nourished by food, which is no more to be valued than the act of eliminating the useless part of our food. What, then, is to be valued? To be received with clapping of hands? No. Neither must we value the clapping of tongues, for the praise which comes from the public is just that, a clapping of tongues. Suppose, then, that you have given up this worthless thing called fame. What remains that is of value? It is, in my opinion, to move or to restrain yourself in conformity with your own constitution, to which end all employments and arts lead. For every art aims at this, that the thing which has been made should be adapted to the work for which it has been made. And both the vine planter who looks after the vine, and the horse-breaker, and he who trains the dog, seek this end. And then what is the aim to which the education and the teaching of youth aspires? So if this sense of true value is well established, you will not seek anything else. Will you not then cease valuing a mass of other things as well? The alternative is not to be free, nor sufficient in your own happiness, nor dispassionate. You will needs be envious, jealous, and suspicious of those who can take away those things, and plot against those who have that which you value. Of necessity a man must be altogether in a state of perturbation who wants any of these things, besides which he must often find fault with the gods. But to reverence and honour your own mind will make you content with yourself, and in harmony with society, and in agreement with the gods, that is, praising all that they give and have ordered. Above, below, all around are the movements of the elements. But the motion of virtue is in none of these. It is something more divine, and advancing by a way hardly observed, it goes happily on its road. How strangely men act! They will not praise their contemporaries and neighbours, but to be themselves praised by posterity, by those whom they have never seen or ever will see, this they set much value on. But this is very much the same as if you were to be grieved because those who have lived before you fail to praise you. If a thing is difficult for you to accomplish, do not assume that it must be impossible for anyone at all. But bear in mind that if a thing is humanly achievable and conformable to his nature, that this can be attained by yourself as well. In a bout at the gymnasium, suppose that a man has caught you with his nails, or by a clash of heads has inflicted a wound. Well, we neither show signs of vexation, nor are we offended, nor do we suspect him afterwards as a treacherous fellow. And yet we are on our guard against him, not as an enemy, nor yet with suspicion, but we quietly get out of his way. Something like this let your behaviour be in all the other parts of life. Let us overlook many things in those who are like antagonists in the gymnasium. For it is in our power, as I said, to get out of the way, and to have no suspicion nor hatred. If any man is able to convince me and show me that I do not think or act right, I will gladly change, for I seek the truth by which no man was ever injured. The injury is in abiding in one's error and ignorance. I do my duty. Other things trouble me not, for they are either things without life, or things without reason, or things that have taken the wrong way and know not the right way. As to animals which have no reason, since you have reason and they have none, make use of them, and in general all things and objects, with a generous and liberal spirit. Towards human beings, as they do have reason, behave in a social spirit, and on all occasions call on the gods, and do not perplex yourself about the length of time that you shall have for this, for even 3 hours so spent are sufficient. Alexander the Macedonian and his groom were brought by death to the same state, for either they were received among the same seminal principles of the universe, or they were alike dispersed into atoms. Consider how many things in the same indivisible moment of time take place in each of us, things which concern the body and things which concern the soul. And so you will not wonder if many more things, or rather all things that come into existence, exist at the same time in that which is the one and all, which we call the cosmos. If any man should propose to you the question how the name Antoninus is written, would you utter each letter with a hoarse roar? What then if they grow angry? Will you be angry too? Will you not rather run through the sequence of letters with composure? Just so then in this life also remember that every duty is made up of various actions. These it is your duty to observe, and without being disturbed, or showing anger towards those who are angry with you, to go on your way and finish that which is set before you. How cruel it is not to allow men to strive after the things which appear to them to be in their own interests and profitable to them. And yet in a way you do not allow them to do this when you are vexed because they do wrong. For they are certainly moved towards things because they suppose them to be in their own interests and profitable to them. But it is not so. Teach them, then, and show them without being angry. Death is a relief from sense impressions, from the pulling of the strings that move the appetites, from the discursive movements of the thoughts, and from service to the flesh. It is shameful for the soul to be first to give way in this life, when your body does not give way. Take care that you are not made into a Caesar, that you are not dyed with this dye, for such things happen. Keep yourself then simple, good, pure, serious, free from affectation, a friend of justice, a worshipper of the gods, kind, affectionate, strenuous in all your proper work. Strive to continue to be such as philosophy wished to make you. Reverence the gods and help men. Life is short. There is only one fruit of this earthly life, a pious disposition and social action. Do everything as a disciple of Antoninus. Remember his constancy in every act which was conformable to reason, and his evenness in all things, and his piety, and the serenity of his countenance, and his sweetness, and his disregard of empty fame, and his efforts to understand things, and how he would never let anything pass without having first most carefully examined it and clearly understood it, and how he put up with those who blamed him unjustly without blaming them in return, how he did nothing in a hurry, and how he did not listen to tittle-tattle, and how exact a judge of people's manners and actions he was, and not given to criticizing people, nor timid, nor suspicious, nor pretentious, and with how little he was satisfied in matters of lodging, bed, dress, food, servants, and how hard-working and patient, and how he was able to keep going until the evening on account of his sparing diet, not even requiring to relieve himself by any evacuations except at the usual hour, and his loyalty and consistency in his friendships, and how he gave full freedom of speech to those who opposed his opinions, and his pleasure in being put right, and how religious he was, without being superstitious. Imitate all this, that you may have as good a conscience when your last hour comes, as he had. Return to sobriety, and come back to yourself. And when you have roused yourself from sleep, and have perceived that they were only dreams which troubled you, now in your waking hours look at these things about you as you would a dream. I consist of a little body and a soul. Now to this little body all things are indifferent, for it is not able to perceive differences. But to the understanding those things only are indifferent, which are not the works of its own activity. And the works of its own activity are in its power, though of these only those which are done with reference to the present. As to the future and the past activities of the mind, these are also for the present indifferent. Neither the labour which the hand does nor that which the foot does is contrary to nature, so long as the foot does the foot's work and the hand the hand's. In the same way, to a man as a man, the pain of his labour is not contrary to nature, so long as he does the labour of a man. And if the labour is not contrary to his nature, neither is it an evil to him. As for pleasure, how many pleasures have been enjoyed by robbers, catamites, patricides, tyrants? Do you not see how handy craftsmen will accommodate themselves up to a certain point to their clients, who are not skilled in their craft? Nevertheless they cling to the reason, the principles of their art, and do not endure to depart from it. Is it not strange if the architect and the physician shall have more respect to the reason or principles of their own arts than man to his own reason or ruling power, which he holds in common with the gods? Asia, Europe are minute corners of the universe, all the seas but a drop in the universe, Mount Athos but a little clod of the universe, all the present time is a single point in eternity. All things are little, changeable, perishable. All things come from thence, from that universal ruling power, either directly proceeding or by way of sequence, and accordingly the lion's gaping jaws, and that which is poisonous, and every harmful thing, as a thorn, as mud, are after-products of the grand and beautiful. Do not then imagine that they are of another kind from what you venerate, but take a properly considered view of the source of all. He who has seen the things of the present has seen all things, both everything that has taken place from all eternity, and everything which will be for time without end. For all things are kindred and of one form. Frequently consider the connection of all things in the universe and their relation to one another. For in a manner all things are implicated with one another, and all in this way are friendly to one another. For one thing comes in order after another, and this is by virtue of the active movement and mutual conspiration and the unity of the substance of things. Adapt yourself to the things amongst which your lot has been cast, and love those people amongst whom you have been placed by fate, but do it truly, sincerely. Every instrument, tool, vessel, if it does the thing for which it has been made, is good, and yet he who made it is not necessary to that good functioning. But in the things which are held together by nature, there is within and there abides in them the power which made them, and therefore it is all the more fitting to reverence this power, and to think that, if you do live and act according to its will, everything in you is in conformity to intelligence. And thus also in the universe the things which belong to it are in conformity to intelligence. Whatever you shall suppose to be good or evil for you amongst the things that are not within your control, it must of necessity be that, if such a bad thing befall you, or the loss of such a good thing, you will blame the gods, and hate men too, those who are the cause of the misfortune or the loss, or those who are suspected of being likely to be the cause. And indeed we do much injustice in our need to make such links. But if we judge only those things which are in our own power to be good or bad, there remains no reason either for finding fault with a god or putting on a hostile attitude to a man. We are all working together to one end, some with knowledge and design, and others without knowing what they do, like people when they are asleep, of whom it is Heraclitus, I think, who says that they too are labourers and cooperators in the things which take place in the universe. But people cooperate in their own very different ways, and even those who find fault with what happens, and those who try to oppose it and to hinder it, cooperate abundantly. For the universe has need even of such men as these. It remains then for you to determine what kind of workmen you place yourself amongst. For he who rules all things will certainly make a proper use of you, and he will admit you into some section of the labour force, whose work together conduce to one end. Only avoid such a part as that of the mean and ridiculous verse in the comedy, which Chrysippus speaks of. Does the sun undertake to do the work of the rain, or Aesculapius the work of the fruit-bearer, the earth? And how is it with respect to each of the stars? Are they not different, and yet they work together to the same end? If the gods have given consideration to me and to the things that must happen to me, they will have considered for my benefit, for it is not easy even to imagine a deity without forethought. And as to doing me harm, why should they have any desire towards that? For what advantage would result from this, whether to themselves or to the general good, which is the special object of their providence? If they have not given me individual consideration, they have certainly considered the general good at least, and inasmuch as the things which happen to me are consequent upon this general arrangement, I ought to accept them with pleasure, and be content with them. But if the gods give consideration to nothing, which it is wicked to believe, and if we do believe it, let us neither sacrifice nor pray nor swear by them, nor do anything else which we do as if the gods were present and lived with us. But if the gods do consider none of the things which concern us, I can at least take consideration for myself, and I shall look to that which is most useful, and that is most useful to a man which is conformable to his own constitution and nature. And my nature is rational and social. So far as I am Antoninus, my city and country is Rome. So far as I am a man, it is the world. The things, then, which are useful to these cities are alone useful to me. Whatever happens to the individual person is good for the universe as a whole. This is apparent enough. But if you observe further, you will observe this also as a general truth, that whatever is profitable to the individual is profitable also to others, though the word profitable should be taken here in its common meaning, as applied to things that are what we should call indifferent. As it happens to you in the amphitheatre and such places, that the continual sight of the same things and the general uniformity of the spectacle becomes wearisome, so it is in the whole of life. For all things above, below, are the same, and come from the same conditions. How much longer, then? Be continually mindful of all the kinds of men, and of all kinds of pursuits, and of all nations that are now dead, till your thoughts come down even to Philistion, and Phoebus, and Origanion. Now turn your thoughts to the other kinds of men. To that place then we too must remove, where there are so many great orators, and so many noble philosophers, Heraclitus, Pythagoras, Socrates, so many heroes of former days, and so many generals after them, and kings. Besides these, Eudoxus, Hipparchus, Archimedes, and other men of acute natural talents, great minds, men who love their work, together with rascals and prigs, and even those who mock the perishable and ephemeral life of man, like Menippus and so on. As to all of these, consider that they have long been in the dust. And what harm is this to them, or to those whose names are altogether unknown? One thing here is worth a great deal, to pass your life in truth and justice, with a benevolent disposition even to liars and unjust men. When you wish to delight yourself, think of the virtues of those who live with you. For instance, the ceaseless activity of one, the modesty of another, the liberality of a third, and some other good quality of a fourth, for nothing delights so much as the exemplification of the virtues, when they are exhibited in the morals of those who live with us, and the more abundantly they present themselves, so much the better. So keep these examples before you. You are not dissatisfied, I suppose, because you weigh only so many pounds and not 300. Do not be dissatisfied, then, that you must live only so many years and not more, for as much as you are satisfied with the amount of substantial matter that has been assigned to you, likewise be content with the time. Do what you can to persuade. If people remain unpersuaded, act any way when the principles of justice lead that way. If, however, someone using force stands in your way, then change direction, be content and tranquil, and employ the hindrance towards the exercise of some other virtue. Remember that your effort was always subject to conditions, that you did not imagine you could do the impossible. What then did you look for? A purpose qualified by conditions, and this object you have attained. What was proposed is accomplished. What is your own true good? He who loves fame considers it to lie in another man's reactions, and he who loves pleasure his own sensations. But he who has understanding considers his own acts to be his own good. It is in our power to have no opinion about a thing, and not to be disturbed in our soul, for things in themselves have no natural power to form our judgments. Accustom yourself to attend carefully to what is said by another, and as much as it is possible enter into the speaker's mind. That which is not good for the swarm, neither is it good for the bee. If sailors abused the helmsman or the sick the doctor, is there anybody else they would listen to? How else could the helmsman secure the safety of those in the ship, or the doctor the health of those whom he attends? How many with whom I came into the world are already gone out of it. Appearances. To the jaundiced, honey tastes bitter, and to those bitten by mad dogs, water causes fear, and to little children a ball is a fine thing. Why then am I angry? Do you think that a false opinion has less power than the bile in the jaundiced, or the poison in him who is bitten by a mad dog? No one will hinder you from living according to the reason of your own nature. Nothing will happen to you contrary to the reason of universal nature. What kind of people are they whom men wish to please, and for what objects, and by what kinds of actions? How soon will time cover all things, and how many things it has covered already?